All right. We have a critical mass then, Travis, you think?
We're good to go.
Okay, thanks. Well, welcome everybody who was able to join us today. This, of course, is just a brief review of this latest funding opportunity from NOAA through the Inflation Reduction Act. There's other opportunities to meet and talk with NOAA about this. The Coastal Program and Extension UW system just sought this opportunity to bring together agency, nonprofits, and academics, as well as local governments on this funding opportunity. So to share ideas and see where there might be logical collaborations in this funding source. The Coastal Program will be asking, but not requiring, that people reach out to us to let us know about their plans for applying. We'll be collaborating with and coordinating with the governor's office to let them know what sort of projects we should expect from the state. And certainly if we see any holes where we think that, as an administration, the state should move forward, we'll probably pursue, additional applications. So again, I'm Mike Fries. I'm Resource Policy Director at the Department of Administration. I manage the Coastal Management Program, and my colleague and good friend Travis is the host.
And I'm Travis Olson. I'm with UW-Madison Division of Extension. I have a couple of roles. One is the Rural Partnership Institute Coordinator. I also work across 3 of our institutes: agriculture, natural resources, and community development. One of the programs within Extension is the Lake Superior National Estuarine Research Reserve in Superior, which has close ties with NOAA and the Coastal Program. So we're all family here, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to provide a forum to learn more about this historic amount of funding that is available for coastal resilience nationwide, but we're more interested in the Great Lakes, of course. And so we've got Becky from NOAA is going to give us, Becky and Kenneth, I'm sorry. We'll let them introduce themselves in just a second here. They'll give us an overview of the funding opportunity. There are lots of resources to learn more about this as well. And then after that, really the purpose of this is to bring people together to share ideas about what they're thinking of for their projects. And if they're looking for partners, this is a good opportunity, to have that conversation. You're not required to stay for the breakouts by any means, especially if you're ready to apply and you don't really need any more partners, but everyone needs partners. So that's up to you. This recording will be made available. We'll follow up with an email about where to find that recording. We haven't figured that part out quite yet. And from there, Mike, should we move forward?
Yes, please.
All right, I will go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully that works. And in the meantime, hopefully that works. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today to talk about NOAA's Climate Resilience Regional Challenge. We in the Office for Coastal Management are very excited about this funding opportunity, so we're happy to be here with you. So my name is Becky Nicodemus. I work for NOAA's Office for Coastal Management. I am on the Great Lakes team, and I am based in Chicago. And my colleague, Kenneth Walker, his home base is NOAA's headquarters in Silver Spring, Maryland, and he is a member of the advanced team for this funding opportunity, so I'm happy that he's here with me as well. And I will first provide this presentation. Then I don't know if there's time, we could answer questions, but we can also point you to resources where there are answers to questions. Okay, so first I'd like to provide some context for this funding opportunity. This is kind of what helped shape this funding opportunity for us. So we know funding is needed for underlying collaboration and coordination efforts for climate resilience, since extreme weather and climate change know no boundaries. And we know that implementation funding is needed for those ready to move forward with resilience plans. We know nature-based solutions are very important and must be integrated with other approaches to coastal resilience. And communities have many challenges and need assistance from a broad range of federal agencies. And finally, despite being at greater risk, many segments of society have not been included in or preparing in preparing for and adapting to those threats. So in comes this funding opportunity, the Climate Resilience Regional Challenge. It's funded by the Inflation Reduction Act, as Mike said. The Act provides NOAA $2.6 billion to enable coastal communities, including tribes and marginalized, underrepresented, and underserved populations, to prepare, adapt, and build resilience to extreme weather and climate change. So this particular challenge is a $575 million investment. And there are 4 priorities for this competition, which are listed here. And I will talk about each of them a little bit later in this presentation, since it will be important for proposals to address all 4 priorities. And they are risk reduction, regional coordination and collaboration, equity and inclusion, and enduring capacity. But before I talk more about those 4 program priorities, I wanted to provide information on the 2 tracks that are available through this funding opportunity. So applicants must select one of the 2 tracks when they submit their per letter of intent. So NOAA designed this funding opportunity to meet communities where they are in the climate adaptation process. So whether from those that are just beginning to understand their risks and getting organized to those that are ready to take action. As such, the challenge includes 2 exclusive funding tracks for applicants to choose from. Track 1 will provide 20 to 25 successful applicants with $500,000 to $2 million each to support regional scale collaboration and strategy development. And we anticipate most awards will be around $1 million, and that's over 5 years. Track 2 will provide up to 15 applicants with $15 to $75 million to implement adaptation actions, with most awards being around $50 million. And the applicant must choose which track to apply to, and each of the tracks has its own evaluation criteria. And to maximize these investments and encourage new applicants, NOAA will provide technical assistance both during the application process and once the grants are made, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit here. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about track 1. So it's all about ensuring effective regional coordination, collaboration, planning, and capacity building. This includes developing and operating regional collaboratives for climate resilience, engaging marginalized, underserved, or underrepresented communities, co-developing resilience and adaptation strategies, and building partnerships and developing capacity for implementing future on-the-ground actions. So activities that support, this may include activities that support coordination, outreach, communication, convening, and engagement. Track 1 efforts may also include risk and vulnerability assessments, adaptation and resilience planning efforts, and even efforts to design and permit on-the-ground actions. Track 1 can also include developing policies, regulatory tools, or financing mechanisms, and of course, workforce development, training, knowledge transfer, and other capacity building activities. And last but not least, track 1 efforts should also include monitoring progress and evaluating outcomes. So for track 2, in addition to the activities I just described in track 1, track 2 supports the implementation of a complementary set of equitable adaptation actions that will collectively reduce risk and build resilience in coastal regions. So these actions should be grounded in existing plans or strategies and provide environmental, social, or economic benefits beyond reducing weather and climate risk. So this may include activities such as modifying public infrastructure, acquiring vulnerable land, planning, designing, building, and restoring natural infrastructure, strengthening coastal access, planning for community-led relocation, advancing standards, policies, and codes, acquiring data and developing decision support tools, establishing resilience hubs, and other activities that advance the program priorities. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about each of the 4 program priority areas. So the first program priority area is risk reduction, planning for and implementing adaptation actions that reduce risk to coastal populations, infrastructure, economies, and ecosystems from the impacts of severe weather and climate change. And that can include flooding, drought, and extreme heat as examples. Track 1 applicants must move communities closer to implementing adaptation actions, and track 2 applicants must be ready to implement actions which are grounded in previous planning efforts. The second priority of the challenge is regional coordination and collaboration. So as we know, extreme weather and climate change does not respect jurisdictional boundaries, so cross-jurisdictional and cross-sectoral coordination and collaboration are essential. This priority promotes regional action to identify and pursue a shared vision for resilience, including ensuring relevant entities are engaged, focusing on shared needs, priorities, challenges, strategies, and actions that can be addressed at the local and regional scale, and partnering with the public to inform planning efforts and build effective relationships. The third program priority is equity and inclusion. We want to ensure that applicants to both tracks include equitable and inclusive adaptation efforts reflected by meaningful engagement and co-development with tribes and members of other marginalized, underserved, and underrepresented groups to ensure the benefits flow to them. And the last program priority is building enduring capacity for adaptation and resilience. So climate change requires coastal communities have the capacity to monitor changing conditions and adapt. So in order to do so, communities must develop and maintain specific workforce capabilities. Applicants to both tracks should focus on building capacity for adaptation and resilience that can be sustained into the future. Some examples of this are promoting continuous adaptation to the impacts of weather and climate, developing and maintaining specific workforce capabilities and capacities, and extending benefits through information sharing and transfer of knowledge to other regions. Okay, so now I'm showing all of the evaluation criteria for this letter of intent on one slide. The first four I just went over. Those are the four priority areas of the funding opportunity, and those are 15 points each. But there are three more evaluation criteria: technical merit, project cost, and outreach and engagement. So it'll be important to be competitive to speak to all of these evaluation criteria in the letter of intent. And note that outreach and engagement is 20 points. So for letters of intent for both tracks, we will be looking to what extent the proposed effort includes specific activities for involving or engaging a wide range of agencies and organizations, including marginalized, underserved, and underrepresented communities and tribes. And then also to what extent does the proposal reflect connections with or intent to connect with NOAA's partnerships. NOAA's partnerships include the coastal management programs, the research reserves, Sea Grant, and here in the Great Lakes, we have the RESA's GLESA and the Midwest Regional Climate Center, just to name a few, or name most of them, I guess I should say. Okay, so who is eligible for this funding opportunity? It's a pretty broad range. So states, territories, counties, cities, and other political subdivisions, tribes and tribal organizations, nonprofit organizations, and institutions of higher education. As I mentioned earlier, technical assistance for this program is available both during the application process and after the project is funded. So right now, during the application period, we have links at our website for 2 informational resources that support the 4 program priority areas I mentioned, and a webpage dedicated to technical assistance with examples of what NOAA can provide. But applicants can request specific assistance by contacting us through the Resilience Challenge email address. I'll show that on the last slide. And I will, I'll provide mine as well. Okay, so these are the next steps. So the first step, outline the proposed project and then submit a letter of intent outlining the proposal. And then we will evaluate, rank, and then invite full applications after that period. So the letter of intent is due Monday, August 21st, I believe it, at 11:59 Eastern time. And then full applications, again, that will be by invitation. They will be due Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. We anticipate announcing the awards next summer and then starting the awards probably October of 2024. That's the plan. And one, I think, very important thing is that there is no matching requirement for this funding opportunity. I know that can be a barrier. All right, so that was my brief overview of the funding opportunity. So here is the website to learn all about it. And as Travis said, there is actually one more informational webinar tonight, but there's also a recording of one that has happened already. And there's frequently asked questions document. There's a template that you can use if you would like for letters of intent, and there's other things on there. And there's the email addresses. And Kenneth, I wanted to check with you to see if there's anything that you would like to add or anything that you would like to reiterate before we turn it back.
Yes, thank you, Becky. Just a few things. Please check back to the CRRC website. This week, NOAA just added a one-page summary, which includes highlights for the competition, We have added a 9-page summary of the NOFO, which is a lot easier to get through than the 64 pages, although I would say nothing replaces reading the 64-page NOFO once, but the 9-page summary will help. And then we have just updated the FAQs based on our first webinar 2 weeks ago. So our number of FAQs went from about 35 to 76. So there are a lot of questions about eligibility and about projects that are addressed in those documents. I would say that there are also some resources. Becky mentioned there are also resources around the program priorities. There is a level of intent template along with tips and a 1-page summary of the criteria that Becky just went over. And I'd say regarding the criteria, it's really important to hit all the program priorities, and that the reviewers are going to want to see, risk reduction, regional coordination, equity and inclusion, and enduring capacity. So I know we're getting lots of questions. NOAA's getting lots of questions from individual communities that may have a green infrastructure project within their community, or they want to acquire land within the floodplain. And these projects are eligible, but they may not score well against truly regional approaches that address all the program priorities. And if your project does not address all of the evaluation criteria, consider bundling activities at the regional scale to make sure you're addressing all of those program priorities. And remember that underserved communities are to receive some of the benefits of these investments. And our hope, we realize that underserved communities may not have the capacity to even manage a $500,000 award over 5 years, which is the lowest level for track 1. But we hope communities with more capacity will partner with underserved communities in their region, so they will see some of the benefits of the adaptation work. So those are just some additional resources that I wanted to highlight on the website. And I think, Becky, I'm not sure if we want to start to take questions at this point. And I see that some questions are starting to come through in the chat, but those are the additional resources that I wanted to highlight.
Mike or Travis, how would you like to proceed?
Yeah. Well, why don't we, I don't see anything in the Q&A, but there are a few questions in the chat that I think Travis had answered a few of those, but one that I don't know if you can answer, Becky or Kenneth, but the question is, how many full applications will you be inviting?
That is a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. Kenneth, has that been discussed?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at our at the 9-page NOFO summary. We are, for track 1, there's $25 million available, and we are looking at awards of $500K to $2 million, with an average of $1 million typical for award. So going with that average, NOAA would be funding up to 25 projects under track 1 at $1 million.
Kenneth, the question is how many full applications will be invited, not how many will be awarded.
Okay, I don't know. I think that'll depend on the caliber of the applications and how well they do in meeting the in terms of scoring on each of the individual criteria. So I don't think we have a specific number in mind, but we want to invite, NOAA will want to invite the strongest letters of intent to apply for the full application process.
Thanks. I think the next one that maybe hasn't been addressed yet is, will letters of intent receive feedback before the full proposal stage? And I think I heard yes if it's invited.
Yes, that's what I understand, is that the reviewers, will write up comments, and those will be shared with those that are invited back for the full application. Kenneth, let me know if I'm wrong, but that's what I think I heard Adam here say yesterday.
Yes, that's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. And I see the definition question that's in the NOFO, also in the frequently asked questions. And I recall seeing, and we are having the applicants, we're not coming out and saying this is the index we're using to judge this, right? So we are asking the applicants to define to us what they view as marginalized, underserved, or underrepresented. I know one of the definitions includes rural communities. So it could, you know, that's a possibility, I would say, for agricultural community. And certainly, you know, some places of the lakes, that's the case, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Becky, would the use of a tool like EJ screen or something like that to demonstrate the environmental inequity within a community be appropriate?
I think people can choose what they would like to choose. EJ screen is one. Is Wisconsin? I knew they were in the process of developing one.
It's not released yet, but the
okay.
Wisconsin Environmental Equity Tool is there, but it's not released yet.
Okay.
But yeah.
EJ screen is one that people often use. There's White House has a tool, but for that one, it's a yes, no kind of response. So that might not be as useful, but you could look at a couple and see. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add that NOAA did include EJ Screen and some other resources and tools in the additional resources that are organized by the program priorities. But we didn't want to say at the national level, this is the list of communities that you need to focus on. We really wanted to leave it up to the applicants who understand their regions, who understand where those underserved communities are within the region, and leave it up to the applicants to tell us, to tell NOAA, and not the other way around.
And then I see Thomas's question. Yes, the answer is yes. You know, it probably goes without saying. You want to make sure you have the capacity to implement both of those projects if they were both awarded. But yes, one lead entity can submit two separate LOIs, you know, one for each of the tracks, or even multiple to each track. Yeah.
And looking further up in the chat, there was a question about example projects. I think that you both mentioned that there are templates of LOIs. Maybe that could be.
That just has, like, in this section, fill out this. But if you look at the notice of funding opportunity, there's list, and I gave them a lot of them in the presentation. There's list of what the activities, example activities. So for track 2 specifically, you know, the NOFO says we're envisioning approximately 3 to 8 of these, kind of the bundling idea of these activities. So you could look at that list and in your mind think, okay, what does bundling 3 to 8 of these look like?
We do have one question from the Q&A. Is this a one-time opportunity, or do you have anticipation for future? Okay.
Unless there's another Inflation Reduction Act passed by Congress, this is a one-time opportunity. Yeah.
I just want to reemphasize, you mentioned in there, read the funding opportunity, all 60-some pages. I want to second that. In my past experience applying for funding, in my experience evaluating applications, everything is in that document, and read it at least once. And if you have a question, go back to it before you give up or try searching and searching. It's probably in there. So yeah, I recommend.
This is Kenneth. I would echo that as well. If you are going to apply, at least read through the NOFO one time, and then the associated documents should be helpful. Page 9 and 11 of the NOFO include a long list of eligible activities for track 1 and track 2. I think we've had some questions from communities already about which one they should be applying for. And I think at the end of 5 years, if the award will have built enduring capacity for addressing adaptation and resilience within the region, it's probably, those activities are probably best aligned with track 1. If there are going to be on the ground projects that can be completed within 5 years, that might include green infrastructure, might include acquisition of land in a floodplain, and those activities have already been identified through existing planning efforts, that these are priorities to build resilience for the region, those are excellent candidates for track 2.
I see the question on planning documents. We're not prescriptive in the NOFO on which planning documents to reference. I could rattle a few ideas off of the top of my head, but really it's very location specific, you know, which planning documents are most appropriate or, you know, would have the information that's relevant to this competition. So it's just that it is, you know, based in some planning and strategic, right? I can't go to say the word now. Strategy development. So that's, I don't know, Kenneth, if you have anything different for that question for Madeline.
Yeah, we're not looking for, it doesn't have to be, we're not prescriptive on what plan the implementation activity came from, but we're looking for the connection that there was some type of planning effort regionally that identified this on the ground activity as a priority for enhancing resilience in the region. So that could be a local coastal management plan, a local hazard mitigation plan, an adaptation plan. It could be within a comprehensive plan, or maybe a transportation plan, depending on the community.
Should we just keep going down the list, Mike and Travis?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. So for track 2, please share your ideas on how big of a region we should look at. So I have a backup slide on regions. We get questions about the size of the region quite often. So I'm looking at that up here. So there's no specified minimum or maximum size for region. It must be in a coastal state or territory, or otherwise enable coastal communities to prepare for weather and climate impacts. The scale and scope should facilitate the implementation of resilience and adaptation actions. And the identified region should be able to demonstrate, with the amount of NOAA funding requested, significant and tangible resilience and adaptation outcomes that benefit the region as a whole and individual coastal communities. So how is that for a non-answer? It's really up to the applicant to define what a region is. I would say, as Kenneth was saying earlier, if it's a single city, you know, it's still eligible. You would hope to see within that city that there's there's different communities within that city that are working together, or different departments within that city. But I think in general, to be more competitive, it's looking for multiple jurisdictions. But the definition of how many will depend entirely on the project that's being put forward. Kenneth, anything to add, or should I keep going?
No, we've gotten a lot of questions about what is the right scale for a regional proposal, and it's really what works for that specific geography in terms of being able to enhance the resilience and adaptation of the region. And so that scale of the region may be different for different activities.
So Emily, your question on a sense of how funding will be distributed across the U.S. It is for all of the U.S. and territories, and there will be some consideration of having equity across the regions. But beyond that, I don't know more details about what exactly that will look like. But hopefully that answers your question. And I will turn it to Mike for Jim Hurley's question.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Jim. I don't think the program itself will be necessarily looking to lead a phase 2 submission, but if the project makes sense, perhaps the Bureau of Resource Policy, in the collective, maybe looking to collaborate with folks if we get enough people together, because again, it's going to be a matter of capacity to see these projects through, and we want to only submit a project that we have the most sincere and thoughtful expectation of seeing it through.
And then Tony's question on the anticipated award date for funding, we're aiming for October 1st of 2024. You can dig, there are possibilities for pre-award costs, which can be done at the applicant's own risk. And there's more information about that in the NOFO and in the frequently asked questions. But in general, we're aiming for October 1st of 2024 for the start date of the awards. Oh, Kenneth, you answered that. Okay. Any other
And then
questions?
I think in the Q&A, I don't know if this is already addressed, but Kirsten asked about, and I think it's been answered, is this expected to be a one-time opportunity? And
Yep.
and I think, yep, and it is indeed, it's a generational opportunity for us.
And there's some other funding opportunities funded through the bipartisan infrastructure law and just the annual grants that the coastal programs have. For example, so the National Coastal Resilience Fund, there's the Transformational Habitat Awards. Sorry, I don't know the full name. That the notice of funding opportunity was just released for year 2 funding opportunity for that. And then the coastal programs are working on some funding opportunities. So there's other opportunities, but for this one, the IRA funded awards are one-time opportunities.
And then the other IRAs include the Climate Ready Workforce.
Climate Ready Workforce.
And then the
So
one
that's
was
open.
just, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you might know the title better than me.
Yeah.
It's ocean-based is in the title, so I apologize for that. Ocean-based climate something accelerator, and it's focused on like small businesses, helping to accelerate small business, with regard to resilience, coastal resilience.
Well, we are right on schedule. Mike, should we'll take this opportunity to thank Becky and Kenneth.
Yeah.
I think this was invaluable. I was really happy with the information you were able to provide and the great questions and answers. So we really appreciate you joining us. And at this point, we have an opportunity then to join breakout rooms based on the track that people indicated they were interested in. If you didn't get a chance to get back to me, that's okay. You can still join a room. I am not sure what that will look like once I push this button, but there should be an opportunity to get yourself assigned. And whatever way we do it, we'll get you in there if you want to be. And so we'll take a couple of minutes here for that transition. And at this point, we will come back at the end, but it's really just to wrap things up. There won't be anything that you'll be missing out on. So thank you again.
Yeah, and